Okay, folks, just hang on a moment. Folks, we'll be right with you. And here we go. A little bit of a technical issue there. But yeah, AEW pay per view for professional wrestling fans. If you're not a professional wrestling fan, you may not want to watch this video. In fact, I want to make sure that you can actually hear me. Hopefully, we've had audio here. If anyone's actually watching in live time, please comment to let me know that you can hear me and my thoughts of genius. So yeah, we got this professional wrestling show coming up tonight for wrestling fans. It's an interesting night, and of course, the whole card, which is pretty much stacked with interesting matches: the Hardys versus the Young Bucks, Hangman Page defending his AEW World Title against CM Punk. The card has kind of been overshadowed now. Thank you, Chungus. I appreciate that. My buddy from Maryland, Chungus Khan, chiming in with the audio is fine. Thanks, buddy. Basically, MJF has apparently had some issues. He no-showed a fan convention yesterday at AEW. There were some fans that came specifically to see Maxwell J. Friedman. He no-showed. Apparently, he was seen playing the slots and so forth instead. And I guess he's, in his mind, making a stand against Tony Khan, who wants more money. This is MJF, his point of view. Not that I endorse or agree with him, but basically he's thinking, hey, I've been with this company since day one, and I'm making less money than the CM Punks, the Daniel Bryans, or the Bryan Danielsons, and the Keith Lees, and so forth. And shouldn't you be paying more money? And basically, it seems like a way of MJF trying to negotiate in advance with the WWE. Being from the Northeast, Long Island, MJF is a big WWE supporter and longtime fan, so that's where he wants to be. And so he's kind of making his little pissy fit. Really, I think he's kind of making a mistake myself, because he might be burning a bridge. And to be honest, the WWE, if you just looked at what they did with EC3 5 or 6 years ago, they did horrible by EC3, who was a big deal, very similar to the MJF character, Ethan Carter III coming in from TNA, and they destroyed him. So I don't quite understand MJF's total blind confidence in what the WWE could do with him. AEW and WWE should do a trade, MJF for Sasha Banks. What about Naomi? I like your idea, Juan, but does Naomi get thrown in too, or do you have to give up something? Who was that guy? Jack Evans, but he already is gone from AEW. So I think it's an interesting thing, folks. I mean, I think all this stuff, whenever this behind-the-scenes stuff kind of takes over, it's actually pretty good for wrestling fans, because it's something interesting. We like this behind-the-curtain stuff. We like this scandal stuff. Ric Flair leaves the WCW in 1991. Ultimate Warrior holds up Vince McMahon at SummerSlam 91. Yeah, well, she's got her husband there, so that would make sense. Naomi, talking about. Let me go through this card, folks. If you want to jump in, we'll go through match by match. And so the buy-in match, I think, is pretty obvious. Hook and Danhausen, who I guess are becoming quite a popular comedic duo, taking on Tony Nese and Smart Mark Sterling. You got to think that it's really not who's going to win, but how quickly. I think it's 5 minutes or less. Hook and Danhausen win that one, and they'll probably do some comedy routines. Be interesting to see if Orange Cassidy somehow gets involved in that. I don't think he's on this card. I think he might have been injured recently, but he's probably due to come back. Imagine if they put Orange Cassidy against Wardlow in the cage. I mean, that wouldn't be very good as a substitution. A lot of speculation going on for wrestling fans. People are saying, it's going to be, they're going to give Wardlow the title. They're going to do this. They're going to have Goldberg come in. I would just say that most of that speculation is because of Dave Meltzer, and Alvarez did a podcast last night that has now been repeated and reprocessed. So that's really just from the mind of Meltzer. It's just speculation, any of that stuff. But who knows? Hangman Page against CM Punk. I'm going to go with the title change. I'm going to go with CM Punk, especially now with this MJF controversy. You have to do a make good. You have to make the people happy. and having a world title change typically makes the fans happy. So I think if they were going to try and keep the belt on Hangman Page, they probably would have to switch that at the last minute, and I think that Punk is going to win the title. I don't think that Wardlow is going to get thrown into that match. I'll give my thoughts on what will happen with Wardlow if MJF continues to be off the show, which I'm not even convinced that he won't show up at the last minute. AEW Women's World Championship match. We've got Thunder Rosa against Serena Deeb. I'm really pulling for Serena Deeb, which would make an interesting thing with a straight edge society of 2006, 2007. Serena Deeb and CM Punk both win titles tonight. But I think it's going to be Serena Deeb. No offense. Thunder Rosa is a great women's wrestler. She also promotes Mission Pro Wrestling. She actually complimented me on this Macho Man Randy Savage t-shirt at some point in one of these AEW tapings I've gone to. She's a nice lady. I just don't think that her title reign's been that spectacular. And I think maybe she'd get over better if Serena got the title from her tonight and they had Thunder chasing Serena. And maybe Britt Baker turns babyface and challenges Serena Deeb. Who knows? What else have we got here, folks? World Tag Team Championship match. This match could go either way. It could be a lot of fun. It could be a clusterfuck. We've got Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus defending the titles against Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs and Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. I am going to go for the title change on this one as well. I guess I'm predicting a lot of title changes, but I think Keith Lee and Swerve kind of need something, so I'm going to go with them to win these belts. I think that's what's going to happen. I kind of agree with others that Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus have been a little bit lacking. But the reality is that Luchasaurus is very choppy in the ring. I think I've talked about this before, where Luchasaurus is just not very smooth as a wrestler. And I think he kind of is the weak link, as bizarre as that sounds, because he is a very strong, impressive guy, but he's just not a very good wrestler. Chungus has a thought here. An angle where Wardlow hunts down MJF and kicks down his hotel room could happen. Maybe. Yeah, it definitely could. I mean, I think there's a possibility that we might be forgetting that even if MJF is holding out for money, unless he wants to be a real-life dick and screw over this Wardlow guy that I don't know if they're friends in real life, but they have put a couple of years in together, I would like to think that MJF has enough respect for this Wardlow guy to at least come back, do the match, and then either leave AEW or not. But I don't think that it would be good creative or business for MJF to just leave the guy hanging. We'll get to that in a minute. More thoughts on that, but you guys are welcome to start writing your comments, and I'll address them. What you think is going to happen? So I do predict the title change. Keith Lee and Swerve. I guess I'm predicting a lot of title changes. Jade Cargill versus Anna Jay. This is going to be a glorified squash match. I think Anna Jay will get a couple of good moves in. Very attractive young woman. She's very young in wrestling. She hasn't wrestled that long, but she's made a big impression. She's a real crowd favorite, Anna Jay. I was there for that women's street fight, Anna Jay and Tay Conti, who was popular at the time, against Penelope Cruz and the Bunny. And that match was great. It was even better in person than it was on TV. So, I mean, I think Anna Jay is a quality wrestler, but I don't think she's going to win the title. I think Jade Cargill's really coming into her own. Very impressive. I didn't think she'd last, to be honest with you. I thought she'd be somebody that would kind of use wrestling for a couple of months and then move on, but she's still around and she's doing good. That's true, buddy. I do agree with that comment on Anna Jay. So then we got the Anarchy in the Arena. This is kind of a funny match. The Jericho Appreciation Society versus Moxley, Danielson, Santana, Ortiz, and Eddie Kingston. I'm going to go with the heels on this one, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't think the Jericho Appreciation Society, to me, it's kind of like the Inner Circle light. And for them to have any type of credibility, they're going to have to win a match. And Chungus getting very excited about Anna Jay. I can appreciate that. She is a very attractive wrestler, and she's talented too. But I'm going to go with Jericho Appreciation Society. I think that they need the victory. I think the thing with, although Santana, Ortiz, and Eddie all kind of need some victories too, I can definitely see that they have some type of thing where Moxley or Eddie takes the pin and the other one yells at him, or they cause the pin. I can see that team turning in on itself a little bit. So I'm going to go with Jericho Appreciation Society. Just that's what I'm picking, guys. Okay, then we have a couple of really interesting things here. The Owen Hart Foundation Tournament Finals, men's and women's divisions. Uh, I guess I'm going to get. I saw some other people do this. I watched some video today of a prediction team. It was a guy and a girl both making predictions. The girl was actually a pretty smart wrestling fan, and she had some good predictions. And she was thinking it'd be really interesting if it was Britt Baker and Adam Cole each won the Owen, and how obnoxious that would be. She was saying, I'm trying to remember her name, if it was Shawn Michaels Jr., winning the Owen Hart singles tournament, and how ironic that would be in a weird sense. And yeah, good for her for thinking that. I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to say that Dr. Britt Baker wins the solo division over Ruby Soho, and that Adam Cole somehow gets a victory over Samoa Joe. That could be a swerve. That could be some type of chicanery. I don't think they do a DQ. I mean, I think it's tough because you don't want to see necessarily Samoa Joe get beat because he's still got some gas in his tank. And I mean, Samoa Joe's a great competitor, but I think if they had someone interfere, and I mean, who knows? That guy Murdoch, he hasn't been around in a while. Get him to interfere, attack Samoa Joe. Yeah, exactly, Chungus. Exactly what I'm thinking. As far as 2.0 is part of the Jericho Appreciation Society, so they gotta get a victory. I think to make it legitimate. I don't know if you can hear the background music, but they're actually playing "Under Pressure" by David Bowie and Queen in here. Whenever I hear the beginning of that song, I hope that it's going to be "Ice Ice Baby" by Vanilla Ice, and it never is. It's always this song. But I like this song too. I guess I just prefer A1A Beachfront Avenue. Then we've got the Young Bucks against the Hardys. Apparently, this match has happened before. I guess it was maybe in Ring of Honor or something. I never saw them wrestle each other before, so it would be new to me, I guess. And I think it's going to be good. I mean, the Young Bucks, I've had my issues with the Young Bucks and with the Hardys, to be honest with you, just because of, some of the things they do, the super kicks, the 9 super kicks a match. You know what I mean? Post picks for AEW, see if anyone can match or beat your picks, win-lose record. I did go into Wrestling Fans, Josh. There's a group on Facebook called Wrestling Fans. Shane McKenna, good friend of mine from Chicago. He actually came out here to Florida once to go with me to an AEW show. And Shane, nice guy, and he has a really well put together document for every pay-per-view, both AEW and WWE. So if you go over to Wrestling Fans on Facebook, Josh, and it's Wrestling Fans with just the W and the F capitalized, 2 separate words. There's another group with the full capitalization of both words, but Shane's a good guy there, and I have already made my predictions of that thing. But thanks for the idea, buddy. And then we go to this Death Triangle. This is actually a match that I'd like to see. These are 6 of my favorite wrestlers, or at least 2 of my favorite contingencies. I'm a big Penta and Ray Phoenix fan. Lucha Brothers, they haven't been featured as well as I think they should have, but there has been an injury. I think it was Ray Phoenix got his arm really screwed up a couple of months ago when they lost the tag titles to Lucha Boy and or Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. Lucha Boy, kind of a cool name for a wrestler, but they're teaming up with Pac, who hopefully he shows up. I mean, Pac's missed a couple of big pay-per-views because of his residency or his citizenship or his paperwork, but hopefully the 3 of them are there to take on the House of Black, which is a really great group, I think. Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews. I mean, that's a loaded team. I believe that they had didn't they have like a pre-match show on the last pay-per-view? So I'd really like to see that House of Black get elevated to the main event level at some point soon. But for now, they're just in this 6-man tag. Yeah, Triangolo de la Muerte versus House of Satan or House of Black. Very good. The video for Wardlow versus MJF was removed. Great intel here, buddy. Thanks, Wisdom of .c, Original Cartel. The video for Wardlow was removed off the AEW YouTube page and Twitter page. Most likely, match won't happen. Yeah, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to say the possible things. We'll discuss that, the possible substitutions or whatever. Darby Allin versus Kyle O'Reilly. I didn't even realize that match was happening. It kind of slipped under my radar. I guess I'm going to have to go with Darby on this one. I think Kyle O'Reilly is a great wrestler, but Darby has really just been over with the AEW fans. He did put over CM Punk on that pay-per-view, whenever that was, a year ago. And he's won some, he's lost some. Darby Allin, he put Miro over for the TNT title. As far as I know, he never got a rematch. But I think Darby is overdue for a big victory, and might as well be this. Then we've got another 6-person match. It's a mixed tag. I don't really know if I like this match. It'll be interesting, the crowd reaction. If Sammy Guevara, Tay Conti, and Frankie Kazarian, will they get booed out of the arena when they take on Scorpio Sky, All Ego, Ethan Page, and Paige Van Zant? Most interesting thing for me in this is the debut of Paige Van Zant. Very, once again, gorgeous woman. I think she's kind of a natural for pro wrestling, but we don't know. I mean, we've seen them use UFC guys. Arlevsky, remember that? Like they had that 5-on-5 match at an AEW pay-per-view a couple of times ago. It was like the Inner Circle versus the top team, and they had like Arlovsky in there. So I'm trying to say your name properly. I hate getting people's names wrong. Nosoy Montana. Hopefully I said that right. Thanks for turning in. It's on 8 p.m., actually 7 p.m. EDT, which is like East Coast time, United States. Now, the show is actually taking place, I believe, in Las Vegas, right? So if you go to 7 p.m. EDT, there's plenty of time converters. Just go to time region converters on the internet. You know, just open up another window and find like time converters or time conversion tables, and put in 7 p.m. EDT, which is when the pre-show starts, but there will be some action on that. So you want to put 7 p.m. EDT, and then whatever country you're in, whatever your time zone is, you'll find out. I've done that many times. It's the easiest thing to do. Once you get the hang of it, I think you'll be fine. So with this 6-person match, guys, what are we thinking here? I guess I'm going to go with the Paige Van Zant, Scorpio Sky, and Ethan Page. I don't know if there's stipulations on this thing, but I think if they want to make something of Paige Van Zant, they've got to have her go over and maybe have her pin Tay Conti. You're welcome, buddy. I'm just trying to help. But yeah, I've done that many times when I'm trying to figure out when, like, for instance, I did a review of the Tyson Fury boxing match about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it was on like in the middle of a Saturday afternoon here, and I had to go and figure it all out. So I've been with you, buddy. Yeah, they got to put over the top team. They got to do that. I agree. So here's the thing that we could do. I mean, Meltzer, I listened to Meltzer and Alvarez, guys, and they had some pretty, I mean, Meltzer was all excited about the MJF thing because he had all these different ideas of what they could do to salvage this. They could bring in Goldberg in theory. I guess Goldberg is legitimately a free agent. They could have Goldberg come in as kind of a interesting dream match, a generation match. Yeah, I appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that. I'm really trying to say your name properly because, like I said, I like getting people's names right. Nosoy Montana. Cool name, by the way. So, yeah, please subscribe. And if you check out, if you like AEW, Nosoy Montana, I've got plenty of AEW clips from Daly's Place. If you become a member for 99 cents a month, you have a lot of exclusive matches from the House Always Wins show that I attended that really you can't find that footage anywhere else. In fact, there's a wonderful 10-man tag match, main event on that thing, with a Japanese wrestler who came in. Kenny Omega's in that, the Young Bucks and everybody else. But as far as this, what do we do tonight for this pay-per-view? Crisis is the another word for opportunity. So, we've heard that expression, right, on The Simpsons or whatever. But, I mean, what an opportunity for Tony Khan, if you really want to be the Booker of the Year, the dirt sheet Booker of the Year, as Eric Bischoff calls him, then tonight's going to test his mind, I guess, and his ability to get on the phone and call some people and get a substitute. Let's just go with the idea that MJF does not show up. And then what do you do if MJF is not going to wrestle tonight, right? So they could go back to that well. Who was the Enzo and Cass? They brought in Cass. They had a different name for him about a month ago. They brought him in to lose to Wardlow. They could do that again because the guy Cass was actually gotten over. People kind of respected what he did in that match, even though it was a losing effort. They could do that. The simple and bad idea would just have Shawn Spears take over the cage match. Thanks, man. I'm glad you enjoy those, buddy. Appreciate it. Yeah, I've got a lot of those clips. The House Always Rules. I got a lot of clips. I got a bunch of stuff. Wrestling Sun, you might enjoy if you like old school John Cronus from the ECW Eliminators. I did a movie that actually has a lot of people that went on to become something. Wrestling Sun, the director's cut and the director's analysis video is on this YouTube channel. So going back to this, what do we do with Wardlow here tonight? You could do a lot of stuff. You could bring in Karrion Kross. That might be another idea. I recently saw some type of clip. I think it was the guys on Wrestle Talk who were saying that, or Cultaholic, one of those two, that basically Karrion Kross was supposed to come in for that spot that Cass had on AEW Dynamite, but at the last minute, Karrion Kross or somewhere in the conversation, Karrion's like, hey, I don't know if I really want to come in to your company, Tony Khan, and just be jobbed out in my first match because I just got beaten by Jeff Hardy and everything else that happened to me over on WWE Raw. So how is it going to help me to come in and just put over your guy Wardlow when I'm trying to make something of myself? And I apparently, according to these guys, Cultaholic or Wrestle Talk, Tony understood. They agreed to do business in the future. But tonight might be the future. I mean, maybe you bring in Karrion Kross or Killer Kross for this match. And that would be interesting. I mean, I think I think the best thing to do would have it just be a beatdown, like have Wardlow get the victory by forfeit. The fans are booing, whatever the fuck. Killer Kross comes out and just beats up Wardlow, and have it be a 60-40 deal, but have, basically Karrion Kross get out of there looking strong. And of course, Wardlow would have the excuse that he was not prepared to fight Killer Kross and was taken off guard and all that stuff. So I think that would be a really strong move. As far as bringing Goldberg in for a one-off, I don't think that would happen. I don't think that's AEW style, but who knows? It could happen. I mean, you could bring in Ric Flair to wrestle Wardlow. You could bring in fucking Hulk Hogan if you want. You could do a bunch of stuff. I think it's exciting. I think if you think about, when I go back to this, but you know who you don't bring in? Savio Vega. Because if you remember way, way, way back, 1998, probably before some of you guys were born, and that's not a rib, that's just, some of you guys probably don't remember this, but Savio Vega, I think it was the No Way Out pay-per-view in February of 1998 before WrestleMania 14. We're all getting excited for Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels. And they had this really powerful 8-man tag match booked for the pay-per-view before that, which was basically a throwaway pay-per-view, but it was Steve Austin, Owen Hart, Terry Funk, and Mick Foley, I believe, as Cactus Jack or as Mankind against the Road Dogg, Badass Billy Gunn, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels. Now, Shawn Michaels had suffered that back injury the month before at the Royal Rumble, and Savio. And so they basically, Shawn Michaels told Vince McMahon, Vince, take me out of the February pay-per-view so I can rest up my back so I can do the job for Austin at WrestleMania. So they did. And of course, the WWE knew this for 2 or 3 weeks in advance or a month, but they still advertised Shawn Michaels until the very day of the pay-per-view. And then they were telling us what a substitution was going to happen. It was going to be a big deal. And only until right before the match started, they brought out fucking Savio Vega. Now, look, Savio Vega is a great wrestler. He's very competent. He did have a good match with Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 12. He had a nice Caribbean strap match with Steve Austin, which got Ted DiBiase out of the promotion. Savio was in the King of the Ring. 1994, wrestled 4 matches on one night, won 3, lost to Mabel in the final. He's a good wrestler. I'm not taking anything away from Savio. He was also on the Monty and the Pharaoh show, friends of mine up in Long Island. So, I mean, Savio's a good wrestler, but he's no Shawn Michaels. I was thinking they could have done Psycho Sid for that. This is going way back to '98, guys, but just bear with me for a minute. So my point is this: if they were to have a Shawn Spears, that would be really bad tonight. You know what I mean? Like the card is pretty loaded, so I mean I think it's forgivable. But I think they need to do something, a make good, and there's so many ways you can do a make good. For instance, if they weren't planning on having CM Punk win the title, uh, they could have him win the title tonight as a make good to the fans. So once again, I think it's a very interesting situation. If I had to make a prediction, which I guess I will, if MJF does not show up, I'm going to predict Killer Cross shows up. And like I said, it's just a beatdown. It's not a real match. And so then they can just do that again. And it's going to suck. I feel bad for Wardlow, but I think the fans these days are so educated, especially AEW fans, that they know that this is part of the business, so to speak. So I don't think anyone's going to hold it against AEW or Wardlow if MJF doesn't show up. I think MJF might be a little bit too arrogant here, thinking that it's a done deal that the WWE is going to put the world title on him at WrestleMania next year. I mean, MJF, once again, I would say, look at EC3, look at Keith Lee, look at, Donovan Jakovic, whatever the fuck. Look at all these guys that have come into the WWE and are supposed to be the next big thing. Tony Storm on the female side. Why does MJF think he's so much better than everyone else? Well, I mean, I guess that's part of his gimmick. He's a heel, but I think he's letting this get a little bit ahead of him. Some people are saying that MJF makes $150,000 a year in AEW, and that's less than the NXT talent. That might be true, but if you look at his schedule, MJF doesn't wrestle a whole lot either. So, I mean, I think he's made a pretty cush little living for himself, and we'll see what the hell happens. But I think that it would be best for business, so to speak, if MJF and Khan can put their differences aside. MJF comes into the arena, does the JOB for Wardlow, and then you either break it off or you just write out the contract or whatever. But I think hopefully for MJF's sakes, really, he can kind of get through the evening, do the match as planned, and get over it. And even if he ends up leaving after that match, that's fine. But at least, finish the storyline. Some people are comparing this story. I guess fucking Wardlow is comparing himself to Dave Bautista and Triple H and the Evolution breakup from 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I would compare it more to the Virgil Ted DiBiase storyline from 30 years ago. I mean, if you look at that, how Virgil was with Ted DiBiase for 2 or 3 years before he turned babyface and so forth. That's more accurate to this Wardlow MJF storyline. So I'm hoping that, like I said, more so for MJF's sake. To be honest, it'd be more interesting if MJF doesn't show up. If like MJF does not show up and they have to go to plan B or plan C, or as I say with my acting students, make shit up. I think it's more interesting, to be honest with you. I really do. So, I mean, I'm kind of hoping MJF doesn't show up. I like MJF as a heel, but I'm not as goo gaga for MJF as a lot of people are, because I find that he put the bunny suit on. If you remember that bunny suit thing he did for A Christmas Story, they were promoting that on AEW television for the TNT network. And I don't like worship at the altar of MJF as some fans do. But I mean, I do respect him. He's a good heel. I just think he's getting a little bit too arrogant for himself. I'm trying to think if I missed anything, guys. I'll give you a final minute here for comments or questions. I appreciate Chungus. No Soy Montana chiming in. Josh Johnson, I appreciate your ideas, buddy. Like I said, go to Wrestling Fans, Josh, and look at my buddy Shane McKenna. He's got a nice poll. You can still enter. Chungus, a big fan of Anna J. Juan, good to see you again, Juan. It's been a while, buddy. If there's any final comments or anything, type them in. I'll give you about another 30 seconds or so. Just type them in or say, hey, I'm typing. I know sometimes there's delays in these videos. But anyway, I'll probably do a video after the show. I'm going to a movie theater tonight, guys, to watch this show. I saw somebody in one of the wrestling groups on Facebook were complaining about the wrestling. Like, why would you go to a movie theater full of other sweaty wrestling fans? and watch the show on pay-per-view. Well, the screen is big. That's one reason. I mean, the sound is great. And, it's not always full. Like I said, I went to that Tyson Fury boxing match a month ago. I was the only one in the theater. I think there was one other guy in there briefly. And I don't know I did get an aisle seat. I bought my ticket for this thing like 6 weeks ago. And on the Cinemark app, I'm actually going to Cinemark tonight. And I think we got some more comments here. And I'm happy with it. Dominic Djokovic. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. Dijak. Yeah. I actually knew the guy in Top Rope Promotions. I did some commentary for his matches. In fact, I was trying to get him to work with my buddy DG Haven, a wrestling manager. Dominic was always very talented. My old buddy, Jeremy Grubb, from the Smart Mark podcast we used to have. God, that was a fun podcast that Jeremy and I used to do. I think some of those videos are still online somewhere. MJF will be there. This is all a work. Well, I would say this, Jeremy. I would kind of agree with you, except that if they are doing this as a work, it might have backfired already because they had a lot of people who came to that autograph signing specifically to see MJF. I don't know if you were in that group that I was in where somebody had video of this female fan looking for MJF. She wanted to service him, and he was not there to be serviced. So she flew all these miles to offer her hand of generosity or something of generosity to MJF, and he was not there to receive. So I don't know what to say. I mean, they apparently did refund some people's money. Some fans were pissed because MJF wasn't at this meet and greet thing. I think, and listen, I listen to Alvarez, and I tend to think that Alvarez is pretty honest. When I say Alvarez, I mean Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer. I think he's about as honest as he can be. And I tend to agree or think that this is not a work, that this is MJF trying to get a money grab out of the situation. And we'll see. But, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not in Las Vegas. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida, where I actually met my buddy Jeremy Grubb here. Generating Heat actually was the name of the podcast. We did some really good episodes on that show. Generating Heat was, I think, the 2016, 17, 18 era. And one show I remember, we had the great NXT debate where Jeremy was on the side of NXT, and I was saying why I didn't watch NXT and why I thought NXT was a waste of time. And I do think that history has proven me to be correct, to be honest with you, because my thing against NXT back then was, why should I get emotionally invested into these talents when they're just going to go to the main roster and be degraded and humiliated and abused, and whatever they established in NXT with Triple H and Shawn Michaels are going to be destroyed by Vince on the main roster. I think my point was very well articulated, and I think time has proven me to be accurate. But Generating Heat, we also did a whole episode on Dave Meltzer. We did some really good episodes. I'm trying to think what else we did. I think we might have done an ECW episode. But it was fun. So maybe we'll have to do that again at some point, Jeremy. And so on and so forth. All right, gentlemen. Well, I'm going to wish you goodbye. As you know, Amazon, if you look up Mike Messier on Amazon, I've got plenty of books. I have a wrestling comic book coming out basically tomorrow. Wrestling with Sanity graphic novel is available. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read for free. My pro wrestling trivia book, if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read that for free or just pay for it. But my pro wrestling trivia book, you can check that out. And I also have Fighter Play Basketball and my Bad Girls with Good Tattoos, Kindle Lavo, A Distance from Avalon, and so forth. So anyway, gentlemen, let's have a good pay-per-view. Like I said, my final prediction is Killer Cross comes out, does a beatdown on Wardlow, and then we're off to the races with that. And then CM Punk gets the title. Dr. Britt and Adam Cole win the Owen. Tag team title goes to Keith and Swerve. And Jade Cargill retains. And so on and so forth. Everything else I already said. All right, gentlemen, enjoy the show tonight. And ladies, too, if any ladies have watched. LikeMessier.com.